welcome everybody to our to the webinar series by the Amazon Research Center for Ornamental Fishes. Guess I'll put my face on. Our goal is to have speakers who will focus on various aspects of fish care, conservation, sustainability, and breeding. My name is Dr. Anthony Mazerl. I am the Executive Director of the Research Center located in Iquitos, Peru. Now, normally our format is for the next hour to for the presentation by Yvonne, followed by questions from the attendees. We sent out a survey a few weeks ago, and some have suggested for us to tell you a little bit about what we do at the Amazon Research Center. So I hope everybody can see this. Not so. We were founded in October of 2014 by myself and two Peruvian friends of mine, Carlos Chicapiando and Dr. Fernando Carlos Ramos. Here in the U.S., we are a 501(c) nonprofit. We are governed by a board of directors, and we are the first facility in the world devoted solely to the study of ornamental fishes. The research center is located on land located in the Peruvian Amazon, approximately 10 kilometers southwest of Iquitos, Peru. We do have affiliation with the with EOP, which is the Peruvian Research Institutes, as well as the extension of the Peruvian Minister of Environment. And we work closely with Amazon Forever, which is the Manatee Rescue Center in Iquitos. We also have hosted many graduate students from the National University in Peru, as well as undergraduate students here in the United States. Our mission is to provide education, support research that facilitate the development of the sustainable ornamental fish aquaculture in the Peruvian Amazon, resulting in a sound conservation practices and improved economic development for the local fishermen. At this point, we have become established as a receiving center for confiscated aquatic animals that have been confiscated through illegal exportation. And we support the reintroduction of these fish back into the environment. In fact, we will be reintroducing some tigrinus catfish that were confiscated a few weeks ago. We have expanded environmental awareness through our education program, and upon the completion of the Aquarium of the Amazon, which we're building right now, we'll be able to have a farther reach in terms of environmental education for the elementary school kids in the area. You can visit us at amazonresearchcenter.org. We do have a Facebook site, Amazon, or facebook.com/Amazon Research Center, and our YouTube channel, where you can find updates on all that we do at the Research Center. So, I don't think I'll read the one in Spanish yet. For this talk, if you have questions during the talk, please put them in the chat box. We have a scribe that will be jotting down all the questions, and at the end of the talk, Yvonne will take those questions and answer them. So it's my pleasure to introduce Yvonne Mokolji, coming to us from all the way in Venezuela. As you can see, Venezuela is a little bit like Kansas before Dorothy went to Oz, because he is in black and white. With more than 100 expeditions and innumerable publications in different countries, Yvonne has demonstrated the authenticity and originality of his artistic passion for photography and for painting. The philosophy that moves his creative will is the urgency to preserve the aquatic ecosystem of the planet. And as a first step, he considers it necessary to make known the richness and beauty of these biomes. That is why he maintains you cannot preserve something if you don't know it exists. And to that work, he has dedicated a great part of his life. Yvonne has recently just published a book called The Fishes of the Orinoco, It's a great book, and hopefully he will post in chat how you are able to get that book. And hopefully we'll have his email in chat, so in case you need to get a hold of him as well. So without further ado, we want to welcome Ivan.
Thank you. I'm setting a trend here, a new trend with this black and white thing. Let me share my screen. I would like to share. And let me go here. Share screen. There I go. Now, let me close this. Okay, can you see now the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to present this way just because I have no text and I need to have this cheat sheet on the left. Well, I'm Ivan Mokolji. I'm a river explorer and audiovisual artist, and I'm an associate investigator of La Salle Museum of Natural History in Caracas, Venezuela. First of all, I want to thank everybody that is here today. Thank you for coming and being here. And thank you to the Amazon Research Center for Ornamental Fishes. Thank you to Renee. Thank you to Anthony Masserol for hosting me today. First of all, I want to give you, everybody, this is my email. That's my website, just in case you have questions or need to contact me. That's the best way to do it, through the website or through my email. All my social media is at Mokolji, not only the major medias, but also Tumblr, TikTok, etc. We're there. Now, we have a book out. Today, I wanted to give a special discount code for today. If you go, you can find the book. It's Fishes of the Orinoco in the Wild. It's a very thick book. It's almost 400 pages. And if you go to mokolji.com, you'll find me, you'll find it. And here's the code on the top. So it would be Amaze15. And if you type it in at the end, you get a 15% off. So today, well, when I got contacted by Anthony to do this talk, I immediately said yes to him, because anybody that is doing something positive for, preserving our planet, we know we need more people. There's not enough people preserving our planet. So when he called me up, I said yes to the talks, and I asked him what should I present, and he told me that he would like me to talk a little bit about preservation and art, and how all of this works together. So that's what I'm going to focus today. It's going to be about preservation and how we do it through art. It's one of the parts that we do in mokolji.com. For me, an artist is not only the person that slaves over a piece of granite to make a sculpture. It is not only a painter. An artist is anybody that has a creative will and cooks well. It could be a cook, it could be a singer, and here it can also be, here you could see Victor Ortiz in Mexico creating a wild aquarium. To me, that's even performance art, creating an aquarium. So an artist for me is a broad, let's say, topic. Here you could see a wild aquarium. The wild aquarium we created here. This is very important. A wild aquarium is an aquarium that you create next to a body of water. Here's the river. This river goes through the town of Oaxaca. And the town of Oaxaca brought us because there's a fish, a killifish, that is going extinct in this river. So we brought the school kids and we created a wild aquarium, which is when you put an aquarium next to the river. And the kids went into the edge of the river. They got the gravel, they got the rocks, they placed them in the aquarium. We got the plants, the aquatic plants, we got the insects, the aquatic insect, we put them all in the aquarium, and we put the water and the fish, and we showed them and explained to them what each of them do in the ecosystem, So at the end, once we explained it to them, we put everything back in the river. this was very interesting because the river, which was the polluted river that always goes through their town, became their special river that has a special fish that is going extinct. So a wild aquarium is like a eco-awareness tool. We got the aquarium hobby out as an eco-awareness tool. And to me, that is part of an like art as well. The interest that we have, also my interest was what has made me do what I do today, which was the aquarium hobby since I was a kid. I had an aquarium at home. Here you could see the betta fighting fish. We had ram cichlids. This is the aquarium, the actual aquarium when I was a kid. We had black mollies and guppies with the plastic plants and the dead corals and the red gravel. That's how we did it back then. I was also a painter. I used to draw and paint even before I was a photographer. Painting came first. And the other thing was snorkeling. I was snorkeling since I was a kid in the rivers. I was snorkeling. We have a very nice Caribbean reef, like 40 minutes away from my house. So I spent a lot of time just snorkeling all the time. So you might think that what I do today is just very easy to put together. It was just a matter of time, but it wasn't like that. The person that really got me into this and made me understand how I could blend all this together was Oliver Lucanis. You can see him right here. He's the person guilty of all the work that we do, that I do today. Thanks to him is what I do. And what he taught me was how to fuse. You can see here, we're in the river and we just got out from snorkeling and I have the camera and I was always taking pictures of the aquarium. And it was until I saw him working that I said, geez, I put it all together. I said, this is the snorkeling. This is my love for the aquarium fish. This is the photography. This fuses all together. So I guess this picture was taken by George Fear. He's here today and between the audience. But this picture was taken by George Fear, and here's Oliver and I. So it was thanks to Oliver that I do what I do today. And his website is belowwater.com. You should visit it, and you should go to his YouTube channel. He has a lot of amazing adventures in his YouTube channel. You should go there, subscribe, and you won't regret it. So before I was taking pictures just like this one. This is the same picture I was taking here. And you can see the Acistridium, the juvenile Malaeus, and Hypsilocara, young Hypsilocara. But I went from that to this just thanks to Oliver Lucanis. And after years and years of photographing underwater, I got to swim in incredible places. Every place I went was more magical than the other. And I fell in love with these places. These places just were they were so amazing that sometimes it questioned me how, if I should keep them in the aquarium as well. It made me question my aquarium hobby, the hobby that I love so much. And it also made me aware that many of these rivers were being polluted. They were being threatened. There were many rivers that when we documented them a year after when we went, they were dry. They had dried up. They had placed small dams and the place were just dead. So I decided that the best thing to do would be to try to preserve these beautiful places that I love so much. And we couldn't bring all the people to the river, so we thought of bringing the river to the people. And what we did was these art exhibitions, because photography is an art, and we'd put them in malls, hotels, anywhere where they would let us put them. And what we do is try to create empathy for people and get them to know what they had. And it was really cool. These exhibitions are really cool because we would start them with dawn, like a sunrise, a picture of the landscape with the sunrise and the river. And then we would go to everything that was next to the river, like the frogs, the flowers, the orchids. And then we'd submerge little by little underwater and show them the fish, the turtles that were underwater, the snakes that were under, the aquatic snakes. And then we would come out at the end as a sunset. So it would be like a day in the river from the morning to the night. And people loved these. They started. Um, we were getting a lot of people in every exhibition. But one thing that came about was that every time that we were there, we were getting too many questions. We would leave a person in charge that would know about the habitat, but people did not know many times what they were looking at because they didn't know the fish. They didn't know the people from the city didn't know what they were looking at. And they were always asking questions, and they loved when you would talk to them. They would be in awe. For example, here there's Pygocentris cariba, which is a piranha. And people would know that there was piranhas, but they would think there was one species. There was just one piranha from here in the planet. When I would tell them, for example, that in the Orinoco, there's 12 or 13 species and one with not even described yet, they didn't know. They were odd that we had so many. So, we would tell them that there are new species of fish that are undescribed, like the blue phantom plico, the L128. And the kids would see, for example, they knew there were turtles, but they would see a maramara turtle and they would think it was like a dinosaur. They didn't know they existed. And the things that were even weirder, the insects or the plants that, for example, this one looks like Paul Simmons from The Kiss with its tongue out. They were really amazed. And when we got to the stranger things, like colonies of protozoans or colonies of bryozoans or freshwater sponges, then you really lost them. People did not know they existed. And that's not only here or in Mexico where they didn't know about the fish that was going extinct in the river. This is everywhere. For example, my wife is from Massachusetts. And when I would go to Massachusetts and take pictures in the ponds underwater, I wanted to, this is a story. So I wanted to go from one pond to another pond, which were connected by a little stream. And I didn't know if I could go through that stream from one pond to the other because there were houses on the sides and I didn't know if I was trespassing. So I went to, there's a fish and wildlife hut or house, which has 5 or 6 rangers. And I went there and I asked them, listen, I want to go from this pond to this one and it's connected by a stream. Can I go? And they didn't know if I could do it. They didn't know if the people owned which side of which house owned them. They didn't know if the river was owned by the government or not. And they asked me, what are you doing? And I told them I'm photographing the bryozoans, the freshwater sponges. And they didn't know that they existed. They didn't know they had bryozoans and sponges in their ponds that they're supposed to be taking care of. They're the ones that are in charge of managing them. And they didn't even know. So this is a close-up of the bryozoans, how they look underwater. They always remind me to the soft corals in the ocean. But all this lack of knowledge made me come up with this quote, that is that you cannot preserve something that you don't know exists. There was no way people were going to preserve the things if they didn't know these things existed. There was no way. And when I thought of this quote and I put it out there, there was a large amount of people. Here you can see George Fear that is there was a large amount of people that understood what we were doing. This is my sister. She helps me a lot with the website. There's a lot of ichthyologists, veterinarians, there's herpetologists. A lot of people got in and started helping us. And a good example of the person that helped us is Elias Castro. Now, if you have seen our videos on YouTube, like the Freshwater Natural Aquarium documentary, or the Fish Guys, here's George again, you will know what I'm talking about in the music I'm talking about. Now, I'm bringing him up not just because he gave us music to do this, but because it has a story. And Elias Castro went to live to the lost world for an extended amount of time. He's a musician, so he went there with a recorder, and he went to live with the Piaroa indigenous people. And when and one of these people were born, and they were singing a lullaby to the baby. He would record the chant. And when the kids were playing in the playground, he would record them. And when people were growing their crops, he would record them when they were singing. And when someone would die, he would record them when they were doing their chants, when they were doing the funeral. And he came back and put all of this. It was like from the beginning to the end of the life in the life of one of the indigenous people. It was just like our exhibitions where we go like from the morning to the sunset, but this was in the life of them. And he went home and he put all this together because he plays the guitar and he plays the keyboard, and he put all this, he put music into it, his own music, and he came out with this. It was called Taremuru. And that's the music that is in all our videos. Now, the album is called Syncretic Sound of a Race. And for those who don't know what syncretism is, it is the combining of different beliefs while blending practices of various schools of thought. And that's exactly what we want to do with people and preservation. Another interesting person that works with us a lot is Roberto De La Fuente. You should visit his website. It's delafuente.art. He is one of the best hyper-realist painters alive in Venezuela, not probably alive, of all times. Here's one of my pictures, and this is one of his paintings. He loves nature. He loves the fish from the Orinoco, and he came up to us and he asked us if he could start painting our pictures. And I said, of course, it would be an honor if you start painting them. And he started painting many of our pictures, but as a natural historian. If you could see, normally the natural history, things that go into science or natural history, they have a white background. They sometimes paint the plants, just like Humboldt or Bonpland did a long time ago when there was no cameras. Usually they have a white background, just the fish or the plant. They have a scientific name or the signature. So he started painting our pictures. Here's another one. This is my picture. And all of these pictures were grabbed by Antonio Machado Allison, which is an ichthyologist, and we created 2 books. And as you can see, we're co-authors, Roberto De La Fuente, Ivan Mokolji, Antonio Machado, and it has Roberto De La Fuente's paintings or illustrations. Now, it is very interesting how people prefer sometimes art, drawn art, for example, as paintings or drawings or illustrations, than photographs. As you can see here, Antonio Machado never placed one of my images. He placed the illustrations. And it is like that. People sometimes prefer a painting or a drawing than a picture. By the way, these books are free download in mokolji.com. They're in Spanish, but they're a free download. And the cool thing about these books and preservation is that the people that are, let's say, investigating the fish, that are interested in the fish, for example, of the Orinoco or the Llanos, the Venezuelan Llanos, if they want to know about them, they don't have to reinvent the wheel and go out and for 15 or 20 or 30 years and find what there is. This is a starting point for them. So these books and everything is just so they don't have to reinvent the wheel. Now, I'm going to tell you a story of how things are perceived between photography and paintings and how things get inclined towards the painting. Here's Frank Magallanes from Opefe.com. Frank Magallanes is a specialist in piranhas. If you like piranhas, you know who he is because he's one of the major people who was always in pro of preservation of piranhas. And his website is actually Oregon Piranha Exotic Fish Exhibit. You can see him here holding my book. And this is a story about how he has a lot of aquariums in his house. He has many aquariums, and one day he calls me and he says, listen, Ivan, I want to send you a present. He's like, give me your address, your home address. So I give him the address, and I get some paintings of his. And he says, listen, I call him up and I said, listen, Frank, I got some paintings that you sent me. He's like, yeah, they're fish I had in my house, my aquariums, but instead of sending you a picture of them, I wanted to send you a painting. And I started thinking, what would I really prefer to get? A painting of his, or a photograph that he would take of the picture of his fish in his aquarium. And for some reason, I really appreciate more the paintings. Now, he told me it was hard for him to do it because he's colorblind. And I asked him, how did you paint these if you're colorblind? And he's like, no, I bought a set that has all these little colors, and my wife wrote the name of the color next to each one. And that's how I painted them. So for me, it was really special to receive. Here's another painting he did of my picture. I really rather receive a painting from a person than a picture myself. So it's not very, if I feel the same way, a lot of people feel the same. So that's why art is something more special. You can reach more people because they're more interested in probably than a photograph. Well, that all brings us down to my paintings. This is Nathan Hill from Practical Fish Keeping Magazine in the UK. He's holding one of my paintings with certificate of authenticity. And my paintings are a little bit different. They have some similarities with Roberto De La Fuente's or with Frank Magallanes in that they have the white background. It's sort of a natural history way of viewing art, but it has more imagination in it. It has more of what would happen if you fuse the flow of water with a fish, or the color of an orchid with a fish, or the color of the orchids that are next to them when they're swimming next to the river. And they have more personality too. Like they add more of my personality. Like Nathan Hill has this tattoo, which it kind of resembles to the personality. So it is more of a imagination type of painting. It keeps the white background as well in some. But here you can see an example of the red-eye piranha. This is a picture of the photograph, the red-eye piranha. But you see all these triangles. And the triangles people think are the teeth or something, but really piranhas, to be a piranha, you have to be in the Sarsaparamidae family. And the Sarsaparamidae family has a serrated keel in their belly. And the serrated keel is just like this. It's jagged. So these are not only the teeth of the piranha, it also has fish forms related to their family in the paintings. And the cool thing about these paintings is that we are bringing preservation and the aquarium hobby into the modern art world, the contemporary modern art world. And this is a segment where usually the aquarium hobby has no presence, and preservation sometimes doesn't either. So we're bringing we're bringing the message of preservation and of the aquarium hobby to them. These are the petroglyphs of the Orinoco fused with the flow of the water. And all of these people that are doing art in pro of this, is just for the preservation of our planet. And I want to thank you, everybody, for being here, and the Amazon Research Center for Ornamental Fishes for having me today. And if you have any questions, we can go and have them right now. Thank you.
So I know we had a question very early on, and
let me stop.
Stop the share so everybody can see your.
Yeah, stop. Let me see if I can find it. stop share.
I got you. Yeah. Um, Early on, you talked about that killifish from Mexico.
Yes.
Do you know what species of killifish it actually is?
Profundulus Oaxaca,
Okay, that was
Oaxaca. Yeah.
okay. So that was one question. Let's see. I'm trying to scroll down to see.
There's even tattoo artists that are doing our tattoos. That's you know, we're getting everywhere. We're trying to get, we're doing stamps now as well. So we're trying to reach more people everywhere.
Okay, we have a photography question. What's the best cheap beginner camera for shooting fish underwater?
The best beginner camera would be any Sony camera, which has a screen in the back, which is practically all. Get the best one you can afford. But those that have the ones that are point and shoot and the zoom goes in and out, they do an extraordinary job. And what I've always done is I put any of those cameras inside this rubber housing. It's called Aquapack. This is actually what I've used all my life. This is really inexpensive. It's like $150. It's called Aquapack SLR case. And if you buy any Sony point and shoot, I guess that is one of those, has the larger lens, it'll fit in here and you can start right away. And they shoot 4K video. They take awesome pictures. Now even the cell phones take awesome pictures.
How hard is it to make the cross from preservation to art?
You have to have it in you. If you're an artist, it's really easy. You just have to, you just have to follow what you like to do. You know, people like to, sometimes some people like to photograph, their interest is old cars. So, you know, if you're into old cars, you're probably not into preservation or preservation of nature. Usually the people that that love nature, that have a high empathy with nature, the people that, you know, wind up trying to preserve it. I don't know about you, Anthony. You can probably chip in that too.
Well, mine was just a love of fish to begin with.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, you have a passion for these organisms.
Yeah, exactly.
You want to see them survive. You want to see them preserved, so my grandkids, so their grandkids can see them. You know, it's just a passion for those organisms.
Yeah.
Eric Thomas wants to know, do you choose your photo shoots by the fish or by the location, and what is next for you once COVID is out of the way?
There's many things that are going to go on. What was the first question first, to answer the first question?
Do you choose your photos based upon the fish, or you find your location? And then
Okay.
what's the location?
This is a good story. When I started taking pictures of fish, I had no direction. I was just listening to, I was going on Facebook back then when Facebook was new, and I would see which fish were interesting here and where they lived. You would read the scientific papers of where they were described from, and that's where you would go. Because the description always, when they describe a species, they always tell you a location, right? So, but then Antonio Machado Allison, which was in the picture, the person that we have co-authored the 2 books, he called me once and he said, listen, I'm going to give you a chore. I'm going to give you direction in your work. He's like, there's a piranha that was described in the 1960s, and it's called Cerassalmus nelsoni, and nobody has seen it alive. It was, the holotype was lost, and there's only like a dot painting with black and white painting with dots. So we don't know what it looks like. And if you go and photograph it, then, you know, we would know. It'd be the first time for science to know what color it is. So it was around 3 trips to the Oracoa River until I found it. And I found it and I photographed the live coloration for the first time. And I brought that back. It was in the beginning. I had a point and shoot camera, the Sony one that goes in and out, you know, and I took pictures of it and I brought it back to Machado, and he redescribed the species with those pictures. And he put me in the scientific article. He put me in there as co-author. So I had just started doing this, and I was already next to one of the biggest piranha people in a scientific paper. And I have to thank him so much too, because that gave me like energy. It gave me the will to keep on and doing it. And when I got back, he said, listen, there's another piranha that nobody has seen alive either. It's called the Priceobricon caraspinus. That comes out in San Fernando Atabapo. Can you go? And after 2 trips to Atabapo, I photographed the first live pictures of it, and not only alive, but underwater in its natural habitat. So when so all of this, I got fused in science because they made me like a biological treasure hunter, you know, and that was just super cool for me.
Next question from Scott is, have you discovered any new species on your explorations?
Many new species. That here it is quite, it's not a big deal. There's so many. For example, we have over 1,150 species of freshwater fish in Venezuela. 1,150. In 15 years, have photographed probably 400 species. Maximum 500 species. So I have done 1/3, I guess a little bit like a fourth of 1/3 of it in 15 years. The rest, there's many species that have even been described, but nobody knows what they look like. They were described in, you know, the 1800s, and they were described and the papers were lost or something, or they were the paintings were, you can't see them well, but they don't know what they look like alive. So a lot of these species, we know they exist, but we don't know what they look like. And the new species, there's a river. If I walk out of my house, I live in Valencia, Venezuela. There's 1 million people in this town. And if I walk out and I walk 5 minutes, there's a river called the Cabriales River. And it's a kind of a sewer. We have treated our rivers like many other countries in the world. We've treated them really badly. But just a short while ago, we discovered a new species of Trichomecturus in there. And there's 1 million people here, and it's 5 minutes away from my house. So it's not that difficult to find a new species. What is difficult is to find the funding to describe these species. It's very expensive to describe them. So that's the hard part. It's not finding a new species, it's finding the money and the support to pay the ichthyologists their time to describe them. I hope that answers the question.
Okay. Frankenwolf wants to know, how much weight are you using on your weight belt when you're just staying there in the water, nice and stabilized?
That's the best question I've heard in a long time. I use, I think they're I use 12 kilos, which is 25 pounds, I guess.
Yeah,
25 pounds. 25 pounds of lead. Yes. So I usually don't swim in the water. I walk underwater. I jump, like sort of what you see the people on the moon, sort of like Aldrin, or, you know, one of those astronauts on the moon. If it's sometimes there's so much weight that if you have to calculate, for example, sometimes you want to cross the stream and it's 10 meters across, and you want to cross the stream. So you have to see if there's a tree trunk that you could jump 3 times and then come up for air and then jump again. And that's how you do it. You jump underwater, you walk underwater until you get on top of a tree trunk that the snorkel can reach at least, because I never use a scuba diving tank. I think only once I've ever used it. And then sometimes you miscalculate and you're in the bottom and you're, I don't know, 4 meters, 12, 15 feet down there. And you have to let it, the lead go and go up, get air, and then come down and drag it out. If you miscalculate, it's so much lead that if you miscalculate, you have to let it go and keep on going. If you can't take it off, you're gonna drown there.
Okay. George Fear wants to know where can we see your artwork here in the U.S.?
Excuse me?
Are there any exhibitions of your artwork here in the United States?
We're having one May. Wait, what up? We're in April, May. Yeah, May 1st. We have an exhibition in the Coral Gables Museum in Florida. And from there, we're probably going to go have an exhibition in October or November in the Venice, in the Colombian consulate in Washington, D.C. Not in the embassy, sorry. But we don't know where they're going to make it because probably the embassy doesn't have a how do you call that, a place to do the exhibition. They probably have to rent something like in the Smithsonian, or I don't know how they do it. But there's at least going to be 2 or 3 this year in the United States. If you follow us on our social media, remember at Mokolji, you'll find out.
Larry Schenkel wants to know, have you ever used a GoPro for your photos?
I've never used a GoPro. I have never used a GoPro because it's hard to explain. I've always liked to get close to the fish, and the GoPros have this wide angle lens, and it's really difficult to take pictures of small fish or to video these small fish with a wide angle lens. It's just really difficult. So I use regular video cameras, again, put them in this, handy cams, and you got HD footage with this, with macros and everything. So I don't use fixed lenses, let's say.
Thank you.
You can't zoom in and out. The problem was that you couldn't zoom in and out, and with the handy cams you can.
Okay. This is from one of my colleagues at my university, Dr. Maureen Idem. She says, thank you very much, Yvonne. As a marine biologist, I am often asked, and I'm asked this a lot by people, how can this species benefit humanity? Why would you want to work on, gouramis in the Amazon? What good are they? I would like to redirect the question away from utility. And do you have any advice on how you can direct that away from that Unitarianism of it, what's good for humans?
That is such a difficult question. I don't want to answer it. You see, the thing is, the hard part of preservation, I don't know, Anthony, if you have the same opinion, is that it is difficult to put a price on something that is not being sold or that is alive and it's not being eaten. For example, it's easy to say this tree is worth so much the metric ton of it to make furniture. But how much is the tree worth in the Amazons alive standing up? Or how much is a frog that is alive in the Costa Rican jungle worth if it's not being sold in the amphibian or herpetology pet shop? And it is really difficult to quantify. We know exactly how much we could sell it for in the trade or the aquarium, but alive, to quantify that, it is so difficult. And I think I don't know if there should be something that should calculate it. There probably is already, but I have not run across it. But to quantify, I remember that I was once standing next to a river and an ichthyologist told me, she said, everything is connected. Once one species goes in this river, the next one will go. And then they're all going. And then it's us. And sometimes I believe the same because there's a lot. I've seen how, for example, the aquarium hobby has affected species. I have seen it. And you know, it's difficult. There's too many of us, I guess.
Okay. Scott wants to know, is there any danger in your line of work?
Yes, all human related. We're not afraid of the. I've been chased by electric eels. George and I have been chased by everything, but I'm afraid is of people, human beings. You know, encountering them, you know, animals in the wild, they're all afraid of you. We're, you know, and I have not had any problems with any animals ever in 15, 20 years. I've swam with crocs. George has too. We've found anacondas in the river, and but humans is, you know, that's what we're afraid of.
Okay. Alexander Williamson says, thank you so much. I was curious if you bait your cameras or have a method to attract fish without startling them.
No, we don't bait them. What I do is we get um, in the river really early in the morning usually, and we're there till late in the afternoon. So what I do is I swim around and I swim around until I find the fish that are not scared of me. And there's always one or two or three or four fish in that day that they just let you photograph. They're the perfect model. And those are the ones I photograph, because if you start chasing them, they just run out. They just, you just picture the tail. And if you bait them, you get all these fish in there. You get fish that are usually at the edge of the river. They come to the middle. And you don't want to photograph a fish that usually lives near the plants to photograph it where there's only sand, for example. I want to photograph it where it usually lives. So I don't bait the fish.
Okay. Liquid Wild says, would you say the aquarium hobby plays a vital role in preservation of wildlife? And he says, I fear the capture and sales of wild fish might hurt the ecosystems immensely.
Does it hurt it? Well, you know, there's probably more times where probably it has hurt it than been good to it. But again, we have saved, there has been some fish, right, that have been saved from extinction because they're found in the aquarium hobby. But there's been places, for example, there's rivers down here where there were Altum angelfish, and they fished them so much that there's none right now. That doesn't mean there's no other fish. They're not present in other parts, but in those places where they have been fished, they have been localized, extinct locally in those streams. And yeah, it was the aquarium hobby. But I think this is where it comes, where I'm totally with Anthony in what he thinks. I think that the people that live next to the river should be taught how to breed these fish. They have the temperature to do it. They have the water to do it. They have, though they should be breeding these fish and then sending those fish to the aquarium hobby. And their work should be breeding these fish, and we should give them the technology or et cetera that we have learned through the aquarium hobby. And that's what we should be doing. And Anthony, I guess that's what you're doing, right?
Yes, that's what we're doing at the research center, is trying to teach the local fishermen how to breed their fish, not only for conservation purposes, but it gives them a steady income all year long. So they don't have to do other destructive things during the rainy season when they really can't fish at all. And so
You're a
that,
genius.
yeah,
You're
so
a
that's
genius.
something we believe in. In fact, our motto is sustainable breeding for a sustainable hobby. You know, if we can breed these fish sustainably by the local fishermen, then our hobby can really view itself as a sustainable hobby, because there are many instances of fishes being caught to extinction or caught to near extinction all over the world. Southeast Asia, when you know, some of the fishes were discovered there, they were only found in 3 or 4 swamps. They were decimated after they were found. Sure, they're bred by the billions in captivity now, but you go to the wild, they're very rare there. So, you know, that's something that we should all.
I think you're a genius for what you're doing. I think that's what should be done. I think they should breed them. And I have an interesting story about this. Remember the killifish from the from the town of Oaxaca in Mexico? Victor Ortiz is trying to breed this fish. He's breeding them, and so he can introduce them into the hobby because the river is going polluted so fast. They're like urbanizing the areas, they're putting housing, etc., and they're losing the habitat so fast that he wants to get it into the aquarium hobby before they get extinct. So that would be the aquarium hobby in a positive way. But there is a catch. The fish is too ugly to go into the aquarium hobby like it is. So he's trying to selective breed them into, because they have a blue tinge to them, until they get really blue. So they will be interesting to sell in the aquarium hobby so they can save themselves. So imagine the species will be saved if it's good looking. And that's just, it's something to think about. End of story.
George wants to know, have you ever been stuck in quicksand?
I didn't. Yes, George, help me out. I never, it's the first time in my life I didn't know quicksand existed. And I was with George. We were in the Lost World in a very nice river. You guys, if you ever have the chance, when things in Venezuela get, the pandemic goes down, go to the Lost World. Oh my God, you have to go there to La Gran Sabana. And to just bring a camera, because and a lot of memory and a lot of batteries. It's the best place to photograph. And we were walking through this little stream, and I sank. I was trying to photograph a moriche palm tree, which are normally straight, and this one was crooked. So I wanted to take a picture, and my left knee went way down into this quicksand. And that's why the palm tree was crooked, because it was growing in quicksand. And my foot got stuck there, my leg, up over the knee, not much, but it was really hard for me to get out. And when I was trying to get out, pulling, my knee came out. I felt something going, and my knee came out. And since then, I have this, sometimes the knee gets out and I have to like adjust it to get in. Since then, I've had a knee problem. So it's a cool story, because if I have a knee problem, at least I can say it will happen in quicksand. But yeah, quicksand exists. You have to be careful with it.
Yes, it really does. Matthew Baston writes this. The wild caught, quotes, wild caught, promote that aquarium fish market health preservation because fishermen want to protect their fishing areas, make sure they're pristine, and guarantee revenue for long term. But you do not seem to agree with this opinion. What's your advice for aquarists wanting to make the best choice for the environment? Prefer fish coming from fish farms or wild caught?
Fish farms, I think.
Um, I will interject something here. Um, Most fishermen, in reality, when you talk to the fishermen, they're after the most fish possible for the best profit. Preservation and conservation is not something they normally think about. They understand it because there are fishes now that are much harder to collect. Instead of collecting 100 in an hour, they collect 100 over 4 or 5 days. So in that sense, they are being more concerned with the conservation effort. But the local fishermen, they care about feeding their family. Most of these fishermen live below the poverty level, and they're not concerned with preservation. They're not concerned with conservation. And 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 if my family was totally dependent upon how many fish I catch to buy food, I wouldn't be concerned about it either. Sure, we could all say they should conserve their environment as we all eat here with our full bellies, but when you're below the poverty line, barely making it, conservation doesn't play a role at all in your mindset.
It's not
And
a fair trade-off.
yeah, that's we
Humans always win. Humans always win and take the fish, and it's not
Yeah.
a fair trade-off.
Yep. Scott wants to know, would you mind expounding a bit about the dangers you face from humans, poachers, threatened locals, conservationists, activists, wackos, gringos, you name it?
It could be
What is the most
gorillas.
dangerous situation you've ever been in?
Gorillas. Well, I've been mugged with machetes, etc. It's just there's all sorts of people in the world, and you know, you sometimes it's not like it's filled with crazy lunatics and crazy people, but there are some people that you know they're probably they have no income, like you know it's really hard to make an income anywhere, and you know you have all that gear and everything, so you're always going to find
Because
bad people wherever you go. And these places are usually solitary. I usually go by myself, or we're two people only, you know, and they come in a group or something. It's just a question of luck of who you meet. These places, there's no police. Let's put it that way.
yeah, so it's fend for yourself.
Yes.
Alexander Williamson wants to know, out of illegal fishing, pollution, gold mining, cattle, logging, what do you think is the most destructive force in the rivers you work in? Also, what is the most dangerous to you in terms of people? Who?
Mining, in terms of people, mining
Okay.
brings all sorts of people. But I think that deforestation is a very big thing. For example, here down in the Venezuelan Amazon, Amazonas state, they people, uh, every indigenous community, there's communities that are still nomads, and they go around, and every time they settle in somewhere else, they cut all the trees to grow yucca. And usually they do 1 hectare or 2 hectares. They peel the things down. But if you got 40 of these communities going around, you got 80 hectares every year that are being cut down. And then they move to somewhere else and they cut it down. So I think deforestation is logging. Plus, these people over there, they usually don't have natural gas. They don't have electricity. So they have to, it's only a matter of time until they can find, they cook with tree trunks, with wood. So after being there a week, they've all exhausted the wood that was dry and dead around them. So they chop down trees, like people here and I've seen in the US too. They chop the trees and they cut it for the winter, and so they do the same to cook. They chop down the trees because they're not going to wait until the tree dies and then chop it. So they it's a resource. But again, there's not much you can do because they don't have any other alternative, right, Anthony?
Exactly.
There's no other alternative.
Yep.
Imagine yourself in the jungle, lost, and what you have to do to eat.
Yes. Charlie wants to know, hello, Ivan. Did you ever find and photograph Nemelictes pilosus?
Neblinictis? We never found Neblinictis. George and I tried to find Neblinictis roraima, and we went with the scientific papers to try to find it, and we were looking in the wrong streams. And the correct streams, you would have to walk 15 kilometers. The cars don't go in, so you have to go by foot 15 or 20 kilometers and 20 kilometers back. And we did not do that at the moment. The Neblinictis are the punk plecos, if I'm correct, right? They have all these spikes coming out of their nose. They're really incredible fish. And we wanted to get a picture of, half in and half out of the water with those tepuis of the lost world in the back and the spike, the punk pleco in the front. But we looked around and we could not find them. We were looking in the wrong place. Those fish are sometimes really endemic, and if you're 15 kilometers away in the wrong river, you won't find them.
Okay. George Fear has just a statement. If I may, a hobbyist should study the aquarium fish in question. For
Yes.
example, zebra plecos are endangered primarily because of the dams that have gone up in the river. Cardinal fishes are a renewable resource. Know the specifics about the fish you want to keep in your aquarium. And I would second that in saying, know the requirements of your fish. Um, you know, where I live, we have really hard water. If I want to bring in saltwater fish from the Amazon, I have to make sure I do something to my water, use RO water, or they will live, but they won't do that well. We want to have the best conditions we can for our fish if we do bring them in from the wild.
And reproduce them and buy them from a person that is reproducing them.
Yes.
Yeah.
There are a lot of responsible hobbyists out there for sure.
Yeah.
Rob on his iPhone says, I agree with your ideology. If fish can be properly bred and raised near where they are collected, it is fantastic.
Yeah.
However, we have seen as these fish come into the hobby, they are sometimes hybridized. How can we convince these breeders to select fish from a single location and keep only the type together for breeding? It happens all the time with Florida, Southeast Asian farms, and it's not unique to fish breeding in South America.
Well, Anthony has to teach them.
Well, it's people. They breed the hybrids because people pay for the hybrids.
That's true.
There's the red tail catfish hybrid with
The parrot cichlid.
the paracichlid is a common one, but there's all sorts of hybrids, and people buy them. People go crazy over them. If there wasn't a market for these fish, they wouldn't produce the hybrids.
Yeah.
But that's really getting into to breed type localities. We're getting into the killifish realm where each pool is its own locality, and how dare you breed Gardneri from Pond A with Gardneri Pond 2. It's really it's difficult to try to breed type localities when you're bringing in fish that you may not know the type locality.
Yeah, Anthony, also, if you're teaching the people to breed them, you can also tell them, listen, don't breed the apistogramma from here. It's from here with this female if you don't know if it's coming with it, because all the females look alike, I guess.
Yep.
And that's something that should be taught to the people if they're going to breed it in the place. They have to be told what has to be done.
Last couple questions. Another one from Alexander Williamson again. He says, last question for him. Don't worry about asking questions, Alexander. That's what we're here for. Are there any hydroelectric projects or specific industries you recommend boycotting or work to change that would best serve river preservation?
I cannot. In Venezuela, we don't have any hydroelectric projects coming that I know of, but that's not what I'm. There's special groups of people that know more about that, and I don't get into that. You have to choose in your life what you're going to do, and I chose that I'm going to photograph these fish. I'm going to document them. I'm going to bring samples to the museums so they're known they exist. I have more. I'm not going to finish what I have to do. I have work for the rest of my life, so I can't go into hydroelectric and all that. That's another thing. There's institutions. There's a good one called the World Migration Day. And the World Migration Day, they're tearing down dams all over the world. And their speciality is in that. I work sometimes with them. If I find one of these barriers that is man-made and they're blocking a fish from migrating or going up a river, for example, the diamond tetra that's going extinct, and we have a natural human barrier they put like a bridge, and I work with them because I tell them, but in that respect they would be easy to contact and ask that question. I work with them, but they're in charge of that part. It's not my thing.
Okay.
I would lie to you if I would tell you something. I'm not an expert in it.
Yeah, you have to pick your battles.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and my battle is not to be protesting and I choose to entice people. I think that it is, for me, it is much better to entice people into protecting the things than to yell and do other. That's the way I chose to do it.
Okay, thank you. Scott wants to know, do you think the ornamental fish industry is an overall benefit or detriment to the local ecosystems you photograph? Well,
Well,
outside
I
of
think
Venezuela, because Venezuela doesn't have a fish exporting per se.
Anthony, the fish that come out of Colombia,
Yeah, yeah, of
a
course.
lot of them, they come from Venezuela.
Yes, yes.
So there is, but we already answered that. But there's some places and there's some fish that have been affected by the aquarium trade. And George Fear, even here, the public has seen how we've gone to these rivers looking for example, Altum angelfish, and they're extinct. They're partially extinct. In 15 years, we've found one, where there used to be thousands and thousands and thousands. So, and the reports that the local fishermen would tell you, we used to get thousands every night because the Altum angelfish get fished by night when they're sleeping. And in one night, they used to get 2,000. And right now, there aren't any. They're gone. So,
And unfortunately,
there's a thing. You can have a rock, and you can use that rock to hit somebody in the head and kill them, or you can use that rock to build a house. So it also depends on how you use the trade and how, it's the same rock, it's the same trade. You can choose to use it in a good way, I guess.
Yep, yep. Okay, we want to thank Ivan for a great presentation. If you have any additional questions, you can email him since he gave you all the email information. Our next talk will be 2 weeks from today. We're going to have Dr. William Crampton from Florida speaking to us on the natural history of electric fish. And so you'll see the times. Again, as I shared with you earlier, the Amazon Research Center for Ornamental Fishes is a nonprofit organization. We survive on donations from the public. To learn more about us, please visit our website at amazonresearchcenter.org. And support of people like you is critical to our future and to the future of our fishes. So again, I want to thank Ivan for the time he took to talk to us from Venezuela. And his nickname now is Dorothy.
I'm setting a trend.
Yes, you are. So thank you very much. Just so you know, if you habla español en una hora, Ivan will be back again. We'll be speaking to our Spanish-speaking audience for this presentation. We're trying to reach as many people as possible with his message and with our message.
It's the same presentation, but in Spanish.
Yes, yes. So again, thank you all who've come to today's presentation. Again, hope to see you guys in 2 weeks, and I will see you in an hour, Ivan. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.